February 10th, 2026. A date that's about to become significant in the ongoing Jeffrey Epstein saga. On the floor of the United States House of Representatives, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna from California did something that sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond. He stood up, looked directly into the camera, and publicly named 6 men, 6 wealthy, powerful men, whose identities have been deliberately scrubbed from the Jeffrey Epstein files by the Department of Justice. Let that sink in for a moment. The DOJ, the very institution tasked with delivering justice, have been actively concealing the names of individuals connected to one of the most notorious sex offenders in modern American history. But here's where it gets even more explosive. Khanna and his Republican colleague from Kentucky, Thomas Massie, spent just 2 hours. Let me repeat that. Just 2 hours reviewing unredacted documents at the Department of Justice. And in that brief window, they uncovered 6 names that should have been public all along. Khanna's words on the House floor were chilling. If we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files. 3 million files. Today, we're going to break down exactly who these 6 men are, what their connection to Epstein was, why their names were redacted, and what this means for accountability, transparency, and justice in America. Enter the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This bipartisan legislation, co-sponsored by Khanna and Massie, demanded that these files be made public. The American people, they argued, deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know who was in Epstein's orbit and why. On February 9th, 2026, Khanna and Massie exercised their congressional authority and went to the DOJ headquarters. They demanded to see the unredacted files. And what they found in those 2 hours shocked them. Names that had no legal justification for being redacted. Names of men who weren't under investigation. Names of men who simply appear to be protected because of their wealth, their influence, their connections. And yesterday, Khanna exposed them. All 6. On the House floor, where his words are now permanently entered into the congressional record. Next up, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem. Unless you work in global shipping and logistics, this name might not ring a bell. But Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem is a major player on the world stage. He's the CEO of DP World, a massive ports and logistics company operating in over 80 countries. He's also the brother of Mohammed bin Sulayem, the president of the FIA, the organization that governs Formula One racing. This is a man with serious global influence. And newly released documents reveal that he maintained a relationship with Epstein years after Epstein's 2008 conviction. In 2015, 7 years after Epstein was a convicted sex offender, Sulayem sent Epstein an email. And I'm going to quote it directly because you need to hear this. I met a girl 2 years ago that went to an American university in Dubai. Best sex I ever had. Amazing body. She got engaged, but now she's back with me. Disturbing enough on its own. But Epstein's reply? According to Congressman Massie, who read the unredacted version, Epstein wrote back, I loved the torture video. Let me say that again. I love the torture video. What video? Who was tortured? We don't know. But the fact that a CEO of a global corporation was exchanging these kinds of messages with a convicted sex offender years after his conviction tells you everything about how untouchable these men believed they were. And his name was redacted. Why? To protect whom, exactly? Here's the thing that people need to understand. Being named in the Epstein files does not automatically mean someone committed a crime. Epstein kept meticulous records. Emails, contact information, flight logs. You could be in those files simply because you exchanged a few emails with him about a business deal or a charity event. But that's exactly why transparency is so critical. The American people are smart enough to evaluate the evidence themselves. We don't need the DOJ acting as a gatekeeper, deciding who gets to be protected and who doesn't. And let's talk about that protection. Because it's not random. It's not bureaucratic error. When 2 congressmen can walk into the DOJ, spend 2 hours flipping through files, and immediately identify 6 names that were improperly redacted, names of wealthy, powerful men. That's not incompetence. That's a pattern. The DOJ's response? After Khanna and Massie confronted them, they admitted the mistake. They started unredacting some of the names. But here's the question. How many more names are still hidden? How many men are still being shielded because they have the right lawyers, the right connections, the right bank accounts? Khanna said it best. If we found 6 in 2 hours, imagine how many are in 3 million files. This story represents something bigger than just 6 names. It's about whether we live in a country where justice is blind or where it has a very selective vision. It's about whether powerful men can use their influence to escape scrutiny, even when they're connected to one of the most horrific criminal enterprises in modern history. It's about whether our institutions, the DOJ, the FBI, the courts, work for the people or for the elite. And here's one of the most remarkable aspects of this entire saga. This is a bipartisan effort. Ro Khanna, a progressive Democrat. Thomas Massie, a libertarian-leaning Republican. They don't agree on much, but they agree on this. The American people deserve the truth. That kind of unity is rare in today's political climate, and it should tell you just how serious this issue is. So where do we go from here? The names are now on the record. Khanna spoke them on the House floor, which means they're in the congressional record forever. They can't be erased. They can't be redacted again. But the fight for full transparency is far from over. 3 million files, countless names, and 2 hours of review revealed 6 cases of improper redaction. What happens when someone spends 200 hours reviewing those files? 2,000 hours? The Epstein case isn't closed. It may never be fully closed. But what we can demand, what we must demand, is accountability. Transparency. Truth. Because justice delayed might not be justice denied. But justice hidden? That's no justice at all. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? That kind of unity is rare in today's political climate, and it should tell you just how serious this issue is. So where do we go from here? The names are now on the record. Khanna spoke them on the House floor, which means they're in the congressional record forever. They can't be erased. They can't be redacted again. But the fight for full transparency is far from over. 3 million files, countless names, and 2 hours of review revealed 6 cases of improper redaction. What happens when someone spends 200 hours reviewing those files? 2,000 hours? The Epstein case isn't closed. It may never be fully closed. But what we can demand, what we must demand, is accountability. Transparency. Truth. Because justice delayed might not be justice denied. But justice hidden? That's no justice at all. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? Let's start with the biggest name on the list. The one that carries the most explosive revelation. L'Isle de Wexner. If you've ever walked through a mall in America, you know Wexner's empire. Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, Abercrombie & Fitch. This 88-year-old billionaire built a retail dynasty. He's worth billions, and he had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein that went far deeper than anyone previously understood. Here's what we've known for years. Wexner was Epstein's most important client. Epstein managed Wexner's money. He had power of attorney. He controlled Wexner's finances for nearly a decade. According to a New York Times investigation from last November, Wexner was the person who transformed Epstein from a mere millionaire into a plutocrat, someone with obscene, almost unimaginable wealth. Epstein handled his investments for many years, and aside from the money, his greatest value to Epstein was that he imbued him with new credibility and credentials. But here's what we didn't know until now. The FBI labeled Wexner as a co-conspirator with Epstein. Co-conspirator, not just a client, not just a business associate, a co-conspirator in the FBI's eyes. Now, to be clear, Wexner has not been charged with any crime. He's never faced trial. But the fact that the FBI internally classified him this way, and that the DOJ redacted his name from public files, that's the kind of information that makes people ask hard questions about power, privilege, and protection. Now we get to the 4 men whose identities remain partially mysterious. Number 3, Nicola Caputo. There's a man by this name who served in the European Parliament representing Italy from 2014 to 2019. He later took a senior position in regional government in Campania. But here's the problem. No verified evidence confirms that this Nicola Caputo is the one in the Epstein files. Major news organizations haven't been able to corroborate the connection yet, so we're left with a name and a question mark. Number 4. Salvatore Nuara. As of now, we don't know who this person is or how they're connected to Epstein. The name is out there, but the details remain hidden. Number 5. Zurab Mikladze. Same situation. Unknown identity. Unknown connection. But important enough to be redacted by the Department of Justice. Number 6. Leonid Leonov. Again, no public information about who this individual is. 4 names. 4 mysteries. And that, in itself, is part of the problem. These men were protected by redactions, but we still don't know why. What did they do? What do they know? Were they complicit, or were they simply in Epstein's contact list? The lack of transparency is deafening.